Man, Kevin Feige, you done fucked up now. Coming to paperback and e-readers this April, Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. The goddess next door must take on the threat of a deadly digital diva driven to destroy the world in this action-packed all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess in paperback and e-readers this April. I got a chance to take a look at Marvel Studios' Eternals trailer. And from what I saw in that trailer, the Eternals may be the beginning of the end for Marvel Studios, and it may possibly be the beginning of the end for your Kevin Feige. Now, your Kevin Feige has been celebrated as an executive for creating the greatly successful Infinity Saga, but with Eternals, it's looking like he's making the same mistake that the Salkins and your Joel Schumacher made decades before him, and that is getting a little too full of himself and believing that he can take any Marvel concept and turn it into a smash hit. Now, the thing that he's trying to do here is what he did with Guardians of the Galaxy, where he took an extremely obscure Marvel concept and took it to another level. But what your Guardians of the Galaxy had that Eternals doesn't have was the fact that it was an action-adventure series that had a lot of fun factors going for it, in addition to just being uniquely entertaining. But the Eternals doesn't come across as entertaining as Guardians of the Galaxy. From the trailer, it looks like it's making the same mistake that Kevin Feige made when he went out here and did the Inhumans. Now, the Inhumans was Marvel's first big failure because the Inhumans came across as extremely elitist and they came across as extremely stuck up, and that really alienated a lot of the Marvel fans out here, and that's why the Inhumans are practically forgotten as related to Marvel and the MCU, and I believe Eternals is going to head down the same road. Now, the big problem with Eternals from the trailer I have seen is the fact that the concept is not answering that critical question every screenwriter has to answer when they go out here and present a concept. And that question is, why should we care? I didn't see much of a reason to care about the Eternals or care about the Eternals and their struggles against the so-called deviants, because the bad guys aren't really featured in the film's trailer. No, all we get are a lot of lush, pretentious sequences of visuals that really don't give us a reason to have that reason to go out here and plunk down that $15 for a movie ticket to go see this next movie in the fourth phase of Marvel's MCU. So they're not really answering the question of why should we care, and even worse, we're not really seeing people who are a good fit in it for this type of movie. So when I'm looking at the Eternals and I looked at the director, Chloe Zhao, yes, she's known for making these films like Nomadland with these incredibly big, sprawling visuals, but the big problem is that she's making a film with big, sprawling visuals featuring obscure characters in the Marvel Universe that most fans don't really know about, and most old school comic fans don't really care about. So this film went from something that had a Marvel label on it that could have been interesting to something that will be an even tougher sell, because you've got these big, sprawling visuals, and then you don't have anything in those visuals to really make you care about anything, because like the Inhumans who came before them, the Eternals come across as really pretentious, really arrogant, and really stuck up, and these are not really characters the viewer can go out here and identify with and relate to, like Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, or Star-Lord, or even Peter Parker. All of those characters had character traits that made you want to connect with them. They had struggles just like you and I, but these godlike characters, the Eternals, really come across as disconnected, detached from the reality, and they really come across as really arrogant and condescending. And that's a big turnoff for the average everyday film goer because they don't really want to see these kinds of elitist types, and they don't want to see this type of paternalistic viewpoint like presented in the film. Oh, the Eternals are coming down to help out the savage humanity and help them improve. That's a real turnoff for the average everyday American out here, especially Americans who have been through a pandemic. I mean, most Americans really don't want to see stuck up, pretentious, rich types trying to tell them that they are better than them and they're going to come down and teach them how to live a better life, and then talk about how they have left them alone, and then they're not going to come out here and intervene until now. And that really puts a big hole in the MCU, because where were the Eternals when Thanos was out here with the Infinity Stones and practically snapped away half the universe? This is a big plot hole in the MCU, introducing these characters, because the time for us to see these characters step into the MCU was in that space between Infinity War and Endgame. That's when the Eternals should have stepped in and said it was time to do something about Thanos. That's when we should have seen them, because that would have been a point to make us care about these characters. And it's hard to care about a bunch of characters who come on after all of our favorite characters have died, and then go out here and arrogantly, one of the characters acts, now that Iron Man and Captain Rogers are gone off the Avengers, who will lead the team? And one of them comes up and says, I think I could lead the team, and laughs at them. And that's really an expression of contempt towards characters fans have grown emotionally attached to over the last decade. And that's the way this film, again, comes really across, as really aloof, really detached, and really condescending. And it's one of those films that reminds me of many of those old school Oscar art house films that just makes you not want to go see it, because it just does not relate to the average man or woman. So when I look at the Eternals, I see the beginning of the end of Marvel Studios, because this is the same type of film that your Salkins started to make with Superman 3 and Joel Schumacher made with Batman and Robin. And it was going out here deviating away from the source material, and it was out here presenting concepts that did not allow the audience to go out here and relate and identify with the characters. So this Eternals, as I see it, is the film that I believe is going to be the beginning of the end of Marvel Studios' current run, and it's going to be one that really makes your Kevin Feige really rethink his whole approach to Phase 4, because Phase 4 is just showing the serious cracks that have appeared in Marvel Studios ever since Spider-Man Homecoming, where they started deviating from the source material of the comics and started thinking they could go out here and make superhero movies without having things based on the source material, or going out here and creating concepts without having a strong fan base. So when I look at this Eternals trailer, it's not really looking good. Yes, it's got all of these big ideas, but it has all of the wrong big ideas, because when I look at this film, I don't see a reason to care, and all I see is a lot of identity politics, a lot of social justice, and a lot of the arrogant ideas and notions that many of these elite types have. And these are not the things that get people to go out and say, I want to spend $15 to go see this movie. I mean, this is not like Iron Man, where you got to see Tony Stark come out of the place of his hubris and then start to connect and see how he was supposed to serve other people. or see Steve Rogers being that soldier who transforms and looks to inspire others to do better. No, we're not getting any sort of hero's journey from what I saw in Eternals, and what I'm seeing in Eternals is something that really shows how the paradigm for superhero movies has not changed since the days of the Salkins and the days of Joel Schumacher, and how we're seeing the hubris of the filmmakers behind the scenes not really understanding that they're headed down the same bad road by producing the same kinds of film. I mean, when I look at Eternals, I look at it and I see the same mistakes that were made with Batman and Robin and Superman 3, and I'm looking at it also and seeing many of the same mistakes that Warner Brothers made, derailing Zack Snyder when he was doing many of his films, even though his Man of Steel was just too dark for my taste. I mean, his Justice League was pretty on point for what New 52 was, but at least with Justice League's uncut version, Snyder cut version, we did get complete stories and transformation arcs. But when I look at this Eternals, I don't again see that reason to care. And when you don't have a reason to care, the audience has no incentive to come back. And a lot of the audience has no incentive to come back after Endgame, because all the characters they had a connection with are now gone. The Hulk has lost his arm. Steve Rogers is an old man. Tony Stark is dead. Thor is off with the Guardians of the Galaxy. And we're getting these replacement social justice types. And the Eternals is not really a good fit for Phase 4. And when I look at the Eternals, I see nothing more than Inhumans repackaged, and I see another disaster that is going to be on the same level as Inhumans, and this one may sting even more because your Kevin Feige has spent hundreds of $millions on this film, and he's got this Oscar-winning director, and they both came together to make a complete disaster that may practically lead to Disney having another flailing division similar to what they have with Star Wars right now. Now, if you want to see me make more videos about comics and superheroes, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications that feature heroes like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Spinsterella trilogy and the Thetas, you can find those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Taking Care of Business. The man who rules the world breaks in a brand new partner to help him take care of business in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get John Haynes, Taking Care of Business at paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere.